This video will describe the production of some 6-sided Celtic ring patterns using the Accu-Slot system in conjunction with the Accu-Facet system. In some of our previous videos, we described the production of some Celtic ring patterns using the Accu-Slot system on the bandsaw. A link to these videos is listed below in the description section of this video, and they're also listed on our website. Several months ago, a customer inquired about producing some 6-sided Celtic ring patterns using the Accu-Slot system. My first thought is this would be quite difficult because you would need to start with a 6-sided cylinder with very accurate size and angles in order to produce accurately aligned Celtic ring patterns. As a result of this customer's request, I developed the Accu-Facet system shown here. The Accu-Facet system mounts on our Accu-Sled, which rides on our rail on our Accu-Slice system. The Accu-Facet system enables the accurate cutting of multi-sided cylinders and even facets on a bandsaw to produce multi-sided cylinders with very accurate size and angles. A description of the Accu-Facet system and its used to produce a number of projects such as these faceted wood desk clocks is listed in several YouTube videos which are listed on our website and are also listed in the description section of this video. In this video I'll begin by first of all using the Accu-Facet system to produce some 6-sided wood blocks. These 6-sided wood blocks will then be sliced on the Accu-Slot system to produce the 6-sided Celtic ring patterns. I'll then glue in a contrasting colored wood insert, sand the insert flush to the sides of the block, and then turn them on the lathe to produce the final Celtic ring pattern. In this video I'll be producing some 6-sided Celtic ring patterns with a single wood insert on each of the 6 sides of the wood block. In part 2 of this video series, I'll be producing some more complex Celtic ring patterns with multiple wood inserts on each side of the 6-sided wood block. Okay, I have my Accu-Facet system installed on my Accu-Sled, and before I get started I want to check 2 dimensions. I want to first of all make sure the blade is perpendicular to the table, and I want to make sure this flat plate of my Accu-Facet is perpendicular to the edge of my plate here. The reason I do that because I want to make sure that these boards are the same dimension, thickness here, 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 and here, so that these sides are perfectly straight. And if this is cocked the slightest amount, those dimensions will be different. So I check this, and it's right on. If it wasn't correct, I have to loosen my clamps on my table, on my bandsaw, and tilt my bandsaw table. But I have this adjusted correctly. Okay, here's where I check my plate to make sure this plate is perfectly perpendicular to the edge of my Accu-Sled table. So I have a square here, machinist square, push that against the fence, push it against this plate, and there should be no gap on the edge. And what I do is I loosen these 2 screws here, get it perfectly aligned, and then tighten these. And I actually tighten them at the end with a pair of pliers just to make sure that they don't move. Because this plate doesn't move once you set it for the entire operation. And by doing that, your sides should be perfectly parallel on your board. So this dimension and this dimension, this dimension and this dimension should be the same thickness. Clamp's tight here. Make sure my clamp here is tight so this doesn't move. I don't want this to move or twist as I'm turning it. And we're making 6 cuts on this board. For this project I used a 12-position pattern disc. I skipped every second index position to produce the 6-sided cylinder. Also notice that I'm using a safety shield on the right side of the bandsaw blade, and I'm using the handle in the Accu-Sled for a safer cutting operation. Okay, I just ran this board and I checked the dimensions, and on this first edge I have around 245. And on this back edge, I have almost 249. So it's off by 40 thousandths. And I want to take a little more off on the back edge, so I'm going to tilt it this way, just a hair. So I loosened the 2 thumb screws, moved the plate very slightly, and then retightened the 2 thumb screws. So I have a very small gap on this edge of the blade, maybe about 5 thousandths or so. After the minor adjustment of the Accu-Facet plate, I attached a new 3-inch square wood block and proceeded to cut the 6-sided cylinder. Okay, that's almost perfect now. So on this edge I have 2152, 2152. Check the other side here. 2153, 2151, 2153. So that's almost perfect. So it's perfectly straight now. I moved the camera to a different angle to better demonstrate the cutting of the six-sided cylinder. This also demonstrates the usefulness of the Accu-Path laser beam to show the path of the cuts to be made. Also note I'm using a safety shield on the left side of the blade, and I'm using the handle on the Accu-Sled for a safer cutting operation. I removed the Accu-Sled and Accu-Facet systems and installed the Accu-Slot system. I'm ready to start cutting the slots in these 4 six-sided cylinders that I made just recently. And this is a standard 4-sided Celtic Ring Pattern. And this is the test pattern I made of the 6-sided Celtic Ring Pattern. It actually looks like twice as many rings, although it's only 50% more rings. But this is the 6-sided Celtic Ring Pattern, 1 ring or 1 insert on each side of the 6-sided cylinder. I set my angle to 55 degrees for these 4 projects, and I am doing 4 at one time. And the reason I do multiple at one time is because I take 1 block, I cut my slot, glue in my insert, clamp it, set it aside to dry. And while that's drying, I'm doing the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th. By the time I get done the 4th one, I can go and sand the 1st one and just keep the process going. So I like to do multiple samples at one time. It just saves time. I made one additional change here to my system. Normally I have my stop, that my blade stops about between 100 thousandths and 1/8 of an inch from the blade. But I did increase the distance to about almost 1/4 inch for this project. And I did that because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting the block on here with the flat side down on the table and this side in. And so I don't want to cut to 1/8 of an inch, would give me only a very, very small amount of material holding the pieces together. So I want a little bit thicker. So about almost 1/4 inch will give me a little more meat down here. So we'll see how that works. Now I could do it like this with the flat side against the fence, and then I could go in further, but it's the same as doing this and having a bigger piece there. So we'll try it. I can do it both ways, but I'm going to try this way first. So now I'm ready to get started. Let me work on this first one here. The other thing I did also, I numbered my sides so I know sequentially how I'm going to go through. So 1, 2, 3, right down the line. So I have 1 facing up. And I am using 3 clamps. I'm using the first clamp here to clamp the board against the stop. And then I use the other 2 clamps on the 2 sides of the laser beam. So again, I'm pushing the board against the fence with this pointed edge hitting the center portion on the beam here on the fence. The flat side flat on the table, and the bottom against the stop. And there is my first cut on that board. And you can see how far down I cut. So I have a small piece of wood here holding that together. I do have fuzzies on the opposite side, so I'll sand those off first, and then we'll glue in the insert. I'm using 220 grit sandpaper to sand the fuzzies off the bottom edge of the cut. And this again is that same poplar, and I'm using some Bubinga inserts. Come here like that. Some paper so I don't get glue all over my table. And once again, I'm using the Type On 3 glue for this project. I have another piece of wood here which is thinner than my piece here, so I can use this to put glue down in the slot. So I'll put some glue in the slot here and use this scrap piece to push it down in. And actually put glue on this piece of wood. Because you do want to try and get glue all the way down into this slot. You want to get a good glue joint, so. And I actually put glue on my piece that I'm putting on both sides. I'll normally do this on the table over there, but just so I don't have to move the camera for this video, I decided to just do it here. But for the remainder of them, I'll do them over in the table. And then insert my board into the slot. Making sure it gets pushed the whole way down. Then I typically either use a rubber band or a C-clamp just to lightly clamp it. You don't want to clamp this too tight. You clamp it too tight, it might cause the wood to move. So you just want to clamp enough that it holds it in place while the glue is drying. Now I'll set that aside to dry for at least a half an hour. That'll probably be enough time that I'll finish gluing up the rest of those, and by the time those are done, I can go back and do the second layer on this. So I'm just going to set this aside and we'll go forward with the rest of the pieces. All the blocks of this series are similar size, and everything's going to be in approximately the same position, so that's why I can do all four of these at the same time. This way, this laser beam is perfect for this because you can see you're not going to be cutting into the clamps or the fins. Make sure it's tight, make sure everything is locked down tight, and now ready to do our second cut. In a likewise manner, I make the slots in the three remaining six-sided blocks, sand the slots, and then glue in a contrasting wood insert. Okay, this is the piece that's been drying for about an hour. And next I sand it on my edge sander, just sanding it flush against the block. Don't want to take any excess wood off, just want to try and clean it up. Okay, that was the first cut on side one. Now I go to side two, and again, just repeat the process. I continue the process of cutting the slots on side two of all the blocks, gluing in the inserts and then sanding the sides flush. I then repeat the process for the remaining inserts on all the sides of the six-sided cylinder blocks. I actually elected to use C-clamps to clamp these instead of the rubber bands. And I just put the C-clamp towards the top edge, the outer edge, put a light pressure, just enough to squeeze the glue out. And it gives a little more pressure to the rubber band and gives a more localized pressure just on that point. By pulling that down, that pulls the whole thing in. So I'll let these dry once again, sand them flush, then I can turn this one. This is the finished six-sided block with one insert glued in each of the six faces, and now it's ready for turning. Well, that's the resulting pattern from a single line, 6 sides. Let me finish turning this. I'll make a little goblet out of it or something. So let me just... After finalizing the shape and hollowing out the inside and then sanding down to 400 grit sandpaper, that's the result. This is a single 6-sided Celtic ring pattern. And that's the finished goblet. This is the second project ready for turning. This is a piece of padauk with maple inserts. So let's proceed to turn this into a finished goblet. And this is the resulting 6-sided Celtic ring pattern. And there's the finished goblet. Here's a comparison of the Celtic ring inserts on a 4-sided block on the left and a 6-sided block on the right before turning on a lathe. Although the 6-sided pattern may look like it contains more than one insert on a side, it does only have one insert in each of the 6 sides. This shows a comparison after turning a 4-sided Celtic ring pattern shown on the left and a 6-sided Celtic ring pattern shown on the right. Again, there's only one insert on each of the sides or faces of the starting wood block. The additional 2 inserts on the 6-sided block produces a much more complex pattern that I find to be unique and much more desirable for my projects. This was my initial test pattern for the 6-sided Celtic ring pattern project. The base wood for this project is constructed from poplar wood. There is one bubinga insert on each of the 6 sides of the starting wood block. The angle for cutting the slots for each of the inserts was set at 55 degrees on the Accu-Slot table. This goblet was made from a hickory wood block. After producing the 6-sided block on the Accu-Facet system, a single slot was cut into each of the 6 sides of the block at an angle of 55 degrees using the Accu-Slot system. A red hardwood insert was then glued into each of the slots. After turning on the lathe, the resulting Celtic ring pattern is quite unique. As I stated before, I really prefer the 6-sided pattern over the previous 4-sided patterns that I made. The base wood for this goblet is padauk. Once again, I started out by producing a 6-sided wood block and then sliced one 55-degree slot in each of the 6 sides of the wood block. I then inserted and glued in maple wood inserts into each of the slots. I do like padauk wood for many of my projects. However, the padauk does tend to bleed into light wood such as the maple inserts in this project. This next goblet is made from hickory wood with a single alternating wood insert on each of the 6 sides set at 55 degrees. For the center pattern, there was one wood insert on each of the 6 sides. On sides 1 and 4, I used red heart inserts. On sides 2 and 5, I used purple heart wood inserts. And on sides 3 and 6, I used walnut wood inserts. In addition, I made some 90-degree slots and inserts above and below the center pattern. These 90-degree inserts can create a unique pattern to make the center pattern better stand out. This goblet is made from a cherry wood block with a single wood insert at 55 degrees in the center of the block on each of the 6 sides of the starting wood block. I also added 2 90-degree red heart inserts, one above and one below the center Celtic ring pattern, to add some additional detail to this project. For this project, I started out with a poplar wood block and produced a 6-sided wood cylinder. However, for this project, I cut 2 slots on each face or side of the wood block. Each of the 2 slots was about 2 inches apart. This produced the double Celtic ring pattern shown here. Once again, the angle for the slots was set to 55 degrees and red heart wood was used for the inserts. In part 2 of this video series, I'll be demonstrating some additional multi-ring 6-sided Celtic ring patterns. I'll be making multiple slots on each side or face of the 6-sided wood starting blocks. Some of the slots and inserts will be parallel to each other. Other slots will be at different angles. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments on this video, please leave a comment, give us a call, or send us an email. For additional details on the systems used in this video, please visit our website. Also on our website are a number of videos describing the production of four-sided Celtic ring patterns. The gallery on our website shows many examples of these Celtic ring patterns. In part 2 of this video series, we'll have some additional details on producing the six-sided Celtic ring patterns.